Okay, so let's do some chanting. I posted the link. Page 101, Kammada Sutta. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Savatini danang ekamantang titoko kamado deva putto bhagavantang etadavocha dukarang bhagava sadukarang bhagavati dukarang vapi karonti kamadidati bhagava seka sila samahita tittata nagarya upetassa tutti hoti sukhavahati dulabha bhagava yadidang tuttiti dulabhahang vapi labanti kamadati bhagava chitta vupasame rata yesang divacharoto cha bhavanaya rato manoti dussamahi madahang bhagava yadidang chittanti dussamadahang vapi samadahanti kamadati bhagava indriyupasamme rata te chetva machuno jalang ariya gachanti kamadati duggamo bhagava vissamo maggoti duggame vissame vapi ariya gachanti kamada nariya vissame magge papanti avangsira ariyanang samo maggo ariya hi vissame samati. Now the English. At Savatthi, standing to one side, the god Kamada said to the Buddha, "It's too hard, Blessed One. It's just too hard." The Buddha responded, "They do it even though it's hard," said the Buddha to Kamada. The stable trainees with ethics and immersion. For one who has entered the homeless life, contentment brings happiness. Such contentment, Blessed One, is hard to find. They find it even though it's hard, said the Buddha to Kamada. Those who love peace of mind, whose minds love to meditate day and night. But it's hard, Blessed One, to immerse this mind in samadhi. They become immersed in samadhi even though it's hard, said the Buddha to Kamada. Those who love calming the faculties, having cut through the net of death, the noble ones, Kamada, go on their way. But this path, Blessed One, is rough and hard to travel. Though it's rough, hard to travel, the noble ones, Kamada, go on their way. The ignoble fall head first on a rough path, but the path of the noble ones is smooth, for the noble ones are smooth amid the rough. This is a wonderful sutta, right? Because think about this God Kamada, and what about your mind? There's always an excuse, right? Oh, but this is hard. And then somebody says, just do it anyway. Oh, but this is hard. So any kind of excuse that this Kamada is trying to bring up, what does the Buddha say? They do it because they do it even though it's hard. Right? It's kind of like drill instructor Buddha come in and say, stop your complaining. Just do it. Right? They do it even though it's hard. I love this sutta. You know, I don't think I had read it before, but it never connected with me. And one of our community members, James, posted it the other day. When I asked for people to recommend what I should put in this chanting book, this was one of his recommendations. And I read it and I said, dang, this is now one of my favorite suttas. I can't believe I didn't connect with this when I read it. But this is so wonderful. Right? The Buddha is admitting, the Buddha understands that this is hard, right? And it's very easy for us to make excuses, right? Maybe we'll continue reading through the Singala Sutta, and remember what the Buddha says when somebody's lazy, they don't work. Oh, it's too cold, so they don't work. It's too hot, so they don't work. I'm too tired, so they don't work. right? So Buddha does not approve of laziness, and he doesn't take any excuses. So the next time you have a rough time, just remember the Buddha's words. They do it even though it's hard, right? There's no one saying that it's easy. It's hard. In my opinion, it's the hardest thing a human being can do. Following what the Buddha called this Arya Pariyesana, this noble quest, noble journey. Of course it's hard to become awakened. If it was easy, everybody would do it. So the path is, and this is the funny thing that I've experienced. Somebody asked me, does it get easier? You know, you've been following this path now for 13, 14, 15 years. Does it get easier? And they were surprised by my answer. My answer is no. It doesn't get easier. It doesn't get easier. It's like a video game in a way. Like what happens is, right, in the beginning, if you played a video game, in the beginning, your tools are junky, right? So you only can fight like the junky monsters. But then like by level 20 or 30, your tools are really refined and honed and skillful. And then what happens? You face the big bosses, right? That's the same in the practice, right? What gets easier is your confidence in the tools. That's what gets easier. The practice itself doesn't get any easier. As a matter of fact, in my opinion, it gets harder. Because the deeper you go, the more ignorance and delusion you realize you have. So it doesn't get easier, but your confidence and your skill with the tools gets easier. What are the tools? Right? Anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, Satipatthana, 4 foundations of mindfulness, practicing metta, the Brahmi Viharas. These are what I mean by tools, right? You get these because you become refined and skillful with these tools, then you know, okay, now I'm practicing, this is what I do. But the practice itself doesn't get any easier. Let me look at the comments here. All right. Okay, I didn't miss anything too much. All right, friends. So that's our introductory chanting. So welcome to Dhammapalooza. Hey, Jose. Good to see you, my friend. Dhammapalooza, for anybody who might be brand new, what we do here every Monday night from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern, what we do is we have a festival of Dhamma. That means we do a couple different things. Right? We do some chanting, do some guided meditation, maybe some sutta readings, Q&A. If somebody wants me to speak on a specific topic, I'll talk on the topic. We can also have community discussion, right? This is one of the great reasons for having a YouTube account, that you can actually chat, right? You can be with the community in the chat, like saying hello to each other, discussing the different topics, what's going on. Right, this is a community event. This is not a log on and listen to Bhante J talk for 2 hours. Right, that's not what this is supposed to be. And every Dhammapalooza is a little different, right? Because I like to let you guys kind of guide how this is going to go. So right off the bat, in the chat, if you have any questions you'd like me to respond to, you can put those questions down. If you have any topics you'd like me to discuss or the community to discuss, all right, you can put those questions down. Bhante Pamuto expressed his desire to come on and just be in the chat, right? Just to, he can discuss and add his stuff in the chat. Although he messaged me earlier and said he couldn't make it today. Something came up. Actually, he was getting a COVID vaccine. That's why he couldn't get up. But anyway, so that's what the chat is for, right? This chat is so that we can communicate and discuss. So right now, I'll give it a minute or two and check and see if anybody has any questions you'd like me to ask, any topics, anything that you'd like us to discuss in the chat. You can post that now. If not, we'll continue on with the Singala Sutta. We got more than halfway through it last Dhammapalooza, so we can finish it out. It says we have 15 people in the chat. Let's see who it says under participants. All right. Hello, Gleam Tech. Also, there is a chance that I might end this a little bit early, just out of respect for my parents going to bed and stuff like that. So at the farm, I won't have to worry about it. But here, I don't want to keep up my parents from getting their sleep because of my loudmouth. When I was at Bhavana, thankfully I had an office because my room was right next to Bhante G, so I couldn't have done this at Bhavana at night. Would have kept Bhante up. All right, I don't see any comments or questions, so we'll continue with Digha Nikaya. All right, so we are on number 13, which is about 3/4 of the way down, covering the 6 quarters. Now I have questions. See, maybe I just didn't wait long enough. Or when I threatened people with suttas, they were like, oh no, this is going to be boring. Let's ask some questions. All right. I stayed at one monastery where there's an evening session, like a Q&A every night with the head Ajahn. And if you asked enough questions, usually you got out of puja chanting. So when I first got there, they were all like, ask Bhante a lot of questions so we could get out of chanting. It was pretty funny. Okay, so I see questions here. What do your parents think about you becoming a monk? A long story. So my mom was the first person I told this to about 4 years before I left to become a monk, back in 2010. So it's about 10 years ago, 11 years ago was around when I first started thinking about becoming a monk. And I was raised Catholic, and there was a time where I was thinking and somewhat encouraged of becoming a Catholic priest when I was younger. And so the first person I told my desire to become a monk to was my mom. And I said, Mom, do you remember when you wanted me to become a Catholic priest? And of course, they knew I was a Buddhist, but and they respected my Buddhism, but they didn't. I don't think anybody, even my coworkers, nobody I didn't tell a lot of people about wanting to become a monk, but most people who I did tell didn't really take it seriously that I was going to become a monk until about the last couple of months before I left. Like, especially when I put in my resignation paperwork, at work and things like that, people were like, oh, he's actually serious. He's actually leaving. But my family has never been against it. They've just been sad that they were losing me. That's the main thing. Like most good parents, they just want their kids to be happy. And once they kind of realized that, once I was there and they saw me and they, realized that I was doing what I loved and what, I was helping a lot of people and stuff like that, they've come a long way. My mom also had a couple interesting experiences. she has some chronic issues, and she's been through a lot of doctors. She's a cancer survivor and things like that. And one of these doctors that she was seeing at the time was an Indian lady. And once she found out that, I guess they were talking like, what are your family and such and such. And once she found out that her son was a Buddhist monk, the Indian lady, the doctor, like really doted over her and was like, "Oh, it's so wonderful that your son is a sadhu, etc." So she was really surprised. She was like, "Oh, this is kind of nice, being the mother of a monk, right?" And then there was another one where there was something. Was it some big event or something like that? I forgot. One of my sisters, some event. And my mom went to like a nail thing. I mean, usually they do their own nails and stuff, but she went to some, and it was like, almost stereotypical. It was like, like Thai people, right, at this nail salon. And again, the same thing. Like they found out that her son was a monk, and they were like, she said there was like 3 or 4 ladies all around her, and they were pampering her and things like that. So she was starting to realize like the importance of monastics, like in this Buddhist culture, right? And then the last one that I remember was she was in a Whole Foods in New Jersey, and she saw a Buddhist nun, and she went up to the Buddhist nun and she says, "You're a Buddhist nun, right?" And she said yes, and they started talking, and it turns out this nun knew me from YouTube. And she's like, "Oh, I watch your son's videos. I love your son." And my mom was like, "Whoa, this is." So my mom would like, when I would call them like once a month when I was at the monastery, and I would talk to them, and she would say these stories, and it was like, that's my good karma, right? The universe is helping me to stay a monk. That's what it is, by sending all these good experiences to my parents, right? So yeah. So yeah, I mean, my family, they're happy that I'm happy, basically. So that's that question. JRF2K, I think that's somebody I might not have seen before, who has a Kerbal as his thing, unless it's maybe somebody I know from the Discord, just a different name. But JRF2K says, "I've been meditating for 4 years now, but I've not gotten very deep." That's okay. 4 years is pretty new. Most people who might have gotten deep within 4 years did it by blind luck, by beginner's luck. "I don't let it bother me very much, but I am thinking maybe I will need to do a retreat or something to progress." Yeah, if you haven't by 4 years, I think it's definitely good to start doing retreats. Obviously, COVID time, it's hard now, right? Because there's online retreats. Like in April, I'm doing an online retreat with Southern Dhamma in North Carolina, but it's not quite the same of actually going on a retreat, being physically secluded, meaning away from all of the places that you have habits with. Your home, your work, your town, all of that stuff. Be going in the middle of nowhere, away from every place you have habits with, and really being physically secluded is a very good thing. Hard, never easy, but it's very good. So I highly suggest, especially when things start to open up, definitely look for places to go do some retreats with. Now, don't expect that the retreats will somehow magically make things better for your practice. They won't, but they will be a part of your progression. They will be a part of your practice. And so, when I was a layperson before I became a monk, once I started going to retreats, I would go to my 2 weeks a year that I got for vacation. Each one, I would split those 2 weeks into 2 1-week retreats, right? So I on vacation would be my retreats. Not exactly the average person's idea of a vacation, and the vacations are not really retreats, but they're better than but the retreats are not vacations, but they're better than vacations, especially if you're a practitioner. All right, very beneficial practice to go on retreat. Adriana says, Bante, I have a question, but I've been wanting to ask about walking meditation. Does walking meditation have to be within a certain amount of feet going back and forth? Technically, no. You could do walking meditation while you're walking your dog. The problem is this. The problem is if your walking path is infinite, you will have infinitely more time, more chances to being distracted, and there will be nothing stopping you from being distracted because you'll just keep walking. If you're just walking for miles, you could just be totally distracted for miles, right? If you're doing a walking path, right, like say like 30 feet, right? You start over here, you're really focused and concentrated. By the time you're here, you're starting to wane. By the time you're here, you've looked up, you're looking at different things, you've heard sounds, right? And then by the time you're at the end, you might be totally gone. You might be not paying attention at all, but there's a stop. And that stop kind of is a good, like, oh, okay, I'm back to mindfulness. Let me turn around. Let me pause for a second, follow my breath, watch my feet, and then start again, right? So there's this natural stopgap for your distraction of having that smaller pace, right? But it's not always 100% needed. Now, so what I did was this, right? So when on my breaks at work, like when I had a 15-minute break, so my office is a square office, just like most people, right? But the road around it was a circle. So it was a square office in a circle. So what I would do is I would come down and I would walk. And I would just like I was regular walking meditation, I would be paying attention to my feet as I'm going around. And oftentimes what I would do is when I got to the halfway mark, I'd turn around and go back the other way, right? Or I would do the whole round, I'd turn around and I'd go back the other way, right? So what I was doing was I was making those stoppages, right? So that I wasn't going to walk around 4 times and be totally lost in thought, right? So there was a point where I was going to turn around, right? So if you're doing it like something like that, there's a point. Now, if you're walking your dog or if you're walking a long distance, try to find some natural stoppages, right? If you're walking where there's street lights or, signs where you have to stop and wait, perfect stop right there. While you're waiting, ground yourself, take a few breaths, focus on your feet, and then you're ready to go. You go forward. Right? If if there's no natural stoppages, then make one. Just say, every such and such, every couple minutes, maybe stop, pause, take a few breaths, focus on your feet and continue. So if you're walking a long distance, make sure to get those stoppages in, right? So that you can have some kind of a time period to stop and refocus. That's what's really important about this kind of, smaller walking meditation path where you're going back and forth, so that there's this kind of natural stoppage. And also one of the things that people like having this natural back and forth is that there's not going to be too many distractions within that thing. Now, if you do it outside, there will be there'll be little animals passing, like when I would meditate, do my walking meditation outside in the morning, I picked one side of the office and I would walk back and forth, and there would be all kinds of stuff. There would be cars going by, and there would be, a little branch would fall down, or, animals would go by. And so there was all kinds of distractions, but it was good practice. It's very good practice. So that's what I would say for walking meditation. If you're walking in a straight line for a long period of time, take natural breaks. Stop, pause, take a few breaths, focus on your feet, and then continue on. Robert says, I've not had much interaction with monks, but feel an attraction to the monk's life. Unfortunately, I'm on a number of meds and psychiatric issues that I'm guessing would make vows problematic. Problematic is probably the right word. I wouldn't say that they necessarily would preclude you from being a monastic. They possibly could. And it also would depend on the place, right? People who have to take lots of medications for a variety of different reasons, that tends to be a burden because the people have to, you're dependent on the laity for food, clothing, shelter, and medicines, right? And so this is why there's actually many, many different medical issues that people are precluded from becoming monastics. Not all, right? So what I would say is that it could be problematic. It could be it could be something that disqualifies, but it doesn't necessarily. That's why you talk to talk to abbots, visit places, see what they say. Right? So it's important that you do that. As they say, it's not over until the fat lady sings, right? It's not over till it's over. So don't get too discouraged. Start investigating, start meeting, start talking to monastics, visiting places when you can, and then you'll find out more. I made a post because I had a Facebook post where it was like from 10 years ago, like of those Facebook memories. And it was like me talking about how I got to meet Theravada monks and looking at I realized like I was a Buddhist for like almost 3 years before I actually met my first Theravada monk in person. Right? I had met Mahayana monks, but the first Theravada monks I met in person where I was already a Buddhist for 3 years. Right? So it's don't worry about not having much interaction with monks. Most converts, most Westerners probably wouldn't. Right? Because there's not that many. You could probably find a Thai or Sri Lankan place or something like that that's close to you and go there. It'll be a toss-up as to whether they will be able to talk to you and say anything, but you could see monks. JRF 2K says, I was going to go to one last year, but then COVID hit. Yeah, I was supposed to spend 5 weeks at 5 monasteries this year, but COVID killed that. I was supposed to be in Australia and different places, but that will have to wait. COVID did a lot of things to a lot of people. Some positive, some not so positive. Robert says, I've been meditating inconsistently for 10 years and haven't done a retreat yet. Not having a car makes it difficult. Yes, it does. Although many retreat centers will have ways to connect to do ride shares. So there is possible that you do ride shares. Like if you are thinking about a retreat place, call them up and say, do you have a ride share? Or do you know of like a ride share that the people who come fairly often have come put together, like a forum or something like that, right? Check to see if there's ride shares. So you might be able to get a ride. Hello, Sister K. Welcome. So for those of you who don't know, Sister K is a Samaneri. Samaneri and Samanera. So Samaneri is women. Samanera are men. And those are, in English, you would say junior monastics. Or you'd say they have gone through what's called pabbaja, which means they've gone forth, right? They've become monastics, right? They wear robes. So if Samanera was standing right next to me, they'd look exactly like me, right? But they don't follow the full what we call patimokkha, because they're not full. There's a two-step process. There's pabbaja, which is going forth from lay life into homelessness, and then there's upasampada, which is when you become a bhikkhu or a bhikkhuni, right? So there's two processes there. Now, in places like Asia, you go there and they do both of them, boom, boom, in like a half hour, and you become a full monk. But in the West, it's a bit more complicated. Well, actually, no. For bhikkhunis, they in the rules they do actually have to be samaneris for 2 years usually. But in the West, bhikkhu or bhikkhuni, it doesn't matter. You're usually a samanera for a couple years. Usually, it's a 2-year process to become a bhikkhu. From the time I came to the monastery to the time I became a bhikkhu was 2-year process. So welcome, sister. It's good to see you. Glad you're here. Adriana says, yeah, that's so true. I never realized that the stop does exactly that. I really appreciate it. No problem. Reed says, how does one properly practice chanting? I mean, besides read the thing out loud. I'm curious to hear the practice described in your words. Chant. Practice. Listen to. Within Theravada, you probably have 100 different ways of chanting. Easy. Right? You can say there's Thai chanting, there's Sri Lankan chanting, but within Thai, there's like Northern Thai chanting, Southern Thai chanting, there's Dhammayut chanting, there's I'm blanking out on the Mahanakai chanting, right? There's so many different ways of chanting. Right. So what I've done is, like, when I learned my chanting, like when I tried to learn, I tried to put it to a rhythm that I liked, right? That would make it easy for me to remember, to memorize. Right. And so that's what I did. And so I would just chant that's for memorization. But for chanting, if you're doing it by yourself, just kind of come up with the rhythm. It's important to kind of understand how to pronounce the Pali first, so that you can, when you understand the pronunciation of how things work, you'll see that there is a kind of, in many of the verses, there's this kind of rhyming and this kind of rhythm of how things are done. So I guess I'm asking, does one sort of contemplate the words as you go? See, the problem is, unless you know the Pali words, it's just Pali. I mean, in all honesty, I've been doing this for years. And for many of the chants that I even might have memorized in Pali, it's just Pali. I don't know. My mind does not chant Pali and automatically convert to English yet. I'm not a fluid Pali speaker yet. Right. So for most of the time, it's just blah, 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 blah. I mean, of course, because I've also read the English a lot, I do know basically what I'm saying, but it's not like I'm chanting it and I'm understanding it at the same time, right? So that's why, like, places like Bhavana, like the Bhavana Vandana, you have the Pali on one page and the English on the other, right? So you can chant and you can know what you're chanting. Right. So you can do like at Bhavana, right? In the morning, they chanted the Pali. In the evening, they chanted the English, right? Of the same thing, right? When I do my 8 a.m. morning monastery experience, Mondays and Thursdays are English chanting, right? So kind of alternating that way can help you do that. But what I would suggest is, what I like to do is like pick certain quatrains, like, lines of 4 verses and stuff like that, and memorize that. And then it's very easy to know, right? Like Anicca Vata Sankara, right? That, like, I know all things are impermanent, right? So you learn just these small verses first, right? And keep that in your mind, right? And then you can build up from there. Josh says, Robert Martin, I think I know what mean. Are you worried about being tired and drowsy in the morning? Did I miss something? Let me scroll back here. No, I didn't miss anything. Jose's asking him if I recommend Goenka retreats. I don't know. I've never done it. I'd say this is one of those. I wish Bhante Pamuto was here because he recommends them. He's done a few as a monk, and he likes them. He calls them. He thinks that they're a good boot camp for beginner meditators. Whereas me, I couldn't fathom at the beginning of my meditation sitting for 10 hours. I mean, he also says that it's not quite 10 hours. He says but yeah, I mean, it depends on the person, right? It might be very beneficial to some people and not so beneficial to others. But I very rarely, if anything, ever heard anything negative about Goenka retreats. Like, I mean, I've heard people say something about like maybe how they're run or the schedule or things like that. But in terms of the content, I've never heard anything bad about it. And Goenka retreats are probably the most available in the world. Like in terms of Theravada, Vipassana, like they're all over the place. So for many people in the world, it might be the only thing that they can remotely even come close to attending for some kind of a Buddhist retreat. Hey, Gray. Good to see you. All right. Well, yeah, Reed, it is long, but one of the things that was an issue for me is that I was told by multiple people that you're not really supposed to be walking meditation. Bhante said that there is walking meditation. I don't know who I believe. And I guess it depends on the different places. But I've spoken to a bunch of people who are servers, meaning that they've done many, many Goenka retreats and then they become volunteers at them, right? And they're not really big on walking meditation. And walking meditation was the savior of my practice. So I'm a big walking meditator. So it's, one of those things. I think I would at least want to try it at least once in this life. I've always had the motto of I'll try anything at least once. So probably as a monk, I'll try it at least once. Robert says it seems like mindfulness and insight are presented as two separate practices in the West, but aren't they kind of intertwined? I don't know. I don't think, no, Robert, I think that, I don't even think that they're thought of as two separate practices in the West. I think that there's just a bunch of, a couple English words that are just used like synonyms. I think that's what it is. I don't think that they're taught as two separate things. I think that just people just kind of throw around these English words, not really knowing the root, not understanding the origin. So it gets confusing, right? And when it comes to these Pali words, there's a bunch of different ways you can translate much of them, and they can mean different things depending on the context. Right. So I think that's where you get this kind of confusion of thinking things are two different things totally, right? Where they're most likely probably interconnected in some way or another. Yes. Yes, Robert, this is exactly what I say. I don't recommend that every Theravada practitioner or even like those who are on the Discord Sangha with us, who follow, who practice and study through the focus of the early Buddhist texts. I never force or recommend or say that people have to learn Pali, but what they should definitely do is look up the very important Pali words like dukkha, like vipassana, like sati, like sankhara, right? Like Dhamma, and understand these words, like the different meanings, the different contexts, stuff like that, because that will definitely help your understanding of the Dhamma and your practice, without a doubt. So I highly suggest at least that. Right? As a layperson, I didn't. I lie. I did actually try to learn Pali as a layperson. It didn't last long. I was too busy. I was like, oh, man, I'm going to learn another language. And then at one point, I was like, when I become a monk, I'll have time to learn it. So I will never look down on any layperson who's like, yeah, I'm not going to learn Pali. I don't blame you. It's not easy. Do I speak another language besides Pali? No. The only other language that you could remotely say I speak at all is Espanol. I have learned it or attempted to learn it a couple times in my life. My brother-in-law is Peruvian. I have been down to Peru. And now we have so many wonderful Central and South American friends on our Discord Sangha. And we're going to meet together in the chat, in the voice, so that I can, try to converse in Spanish. Because I think it is important for me to learn Spanish. I have been invited down to South America to teach and things like that. And I would like to do it in Spanish. So I would definitely like to learn another language. And I think that's the language for me to learn is Spanish. Makes the most sense. I will never match Bhante G's level of learning 9 languages. He was Bhante G had some crazy memory and intelligence retention when he was younger. I mean, he knew 9 languages. I've heard him speak at least 4 or 5 very briefly. He hasn't had to speak many of the languages he learned in a long time because he's been staying in America for years because of his health and things like that. Yeah, Jose, if you're on the Discord with us, you can join. But I would like to be able to hear all the different dialects because I do understand that any language is spoken in very different ways in different geographic areas. So. All right, so where are we at here? I think this is a natural stop. Let's finish out Digha Nikaya. There's not too much. You guys remember from last week, we heard Buddha, the financial planner, Buddha talk about how to understand we're good friends, all these kind of things. So we went through all of that, and we'll finish it out. This is the where we're at. Again, down on 13, covering the 6 quarters. Now we're going to go over here. The Buddha is going to talk about like what are the duties of a husband to a wife to a husband, parents to children, these kind of things. So we're going to go through this whole kind of section of what are your duties as a person towards the people around you, towards the people that you're responsible for, etc. So, covering the 6 quarters. And how, householder's son, does a noble disciple cover the 6 quarters? These 6 quarters should be recognized. Parents as the East, teachers as the South, partners and children as the West, friends and colleagues as the North, slaves and workers beneath, and ascetics and Brahmins as above. And you see these 6 quarters in Brahma Viharas, right? 4 quarters above and beyond. You see in the metta, right? The one abides metta to 1 quarter, pervading with limitless goodwill. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, and so above as below and all around, right? So this framework of the directions is something we see was part of the traditional culture. And like most of the things, Buddha took them and used these frameworks in teaching Dhamma. And so we see that all of the different people who you might have contact with, parents, siblings, spouse, children, your servants, slaves, ascetics, Brahmins, etc., right? So a child should serve their parents as the Eastern Quarter in 5 ways, thinking, I will support those who supported me. Meaning, like when your parents get older, your parents raised you, so they supported me, my life, I want to support them. I'll do my duty for them. I'll maintain the family traditions. I'll take care of the inheritance. Your parents worked hard, and maybe at that time you're talking about your grandparents and your great-grandparents, right? Working the land, building something, right? You don't want to be the one who throws it all away. I'm going to go gambling and partying instead. I'm going to just, lose my ancestral property, right? So no, you take care of the inheritance, maintain traditions. When they have passed away, I'll make offerings on their behalf, right? So that's how a child should serve their parents. Parents served by children in these 5 ways show compassion to them in 5 ways. So this is how parents show compassion to children. They keep them from doing bad. They support them in doing good. They train them in a profession. They connect them with a suitable partner. Did your parents set you up with a good man or woman to get married to? They transfer the inheritance in the due time. Now, parents served by their children in these 5 ways should show compassion to them in these 5 ways. And that's how the Eastern Quarter is covered, kept safe, free from peril. All right, Reed, good night. A student should serve their teachers as the Southern Quarter in these 5 ways. By rising for them, by serving them, by listening well, by looking after them, and by carefully learning their profession. Teachers should served by their students in these 5 ways should show compassion to them in these 5 ways, right? So the child, the student, they are serving the senior person, and that senior person shouldn't be abusive and controlling and be the authoritarian. No, they should show compassion by acting in such ways, right? Teachers served by their students show compassion. They make sure they're well trained and well educated. They clearly explain all the knowledge of the profession. They introduce them to their friends and colleagues, right? Setting them up with good connections, right? They provide protection in every region. Teachers served by their students in these 5 ways show compassion to them in these 5 ways. And that's how the Southern Quarter is covered, kept safe, and free from peril. A husband should serve his wife as the Western Quarter in these 5 ways. By treating her with honor, by not looking down on her, by not being unfaithful, by relinquishing authority to her, and by presenting her with adornments. A wife served by her husband in these 5 ways should show compassion to him in 5 ways. She's well organized in her work. She manages the domestic help. She's not unfaithful. She preserves his earnings. She's deft and tireless in her duties. A wife served by her husband in these 5 ways shows compassion to him in these 5 ways. Right? Notice here also this equality, right? Both wife and husband, they should be faithful to each other, right? Serve each other, be compassionate to each other, maintain the, you're both on the ship, right? So you don't want to sink the ship, right? Maintain the good duties, maintaining the household, maintaining the work, maintaining the finances, all of these things, so that the family can be stable, so that the children can grow up in a very stable, beneficial environment. And that is how the Western Quarter is covered, kept safe, and free of peril. A gentleman should serve their friends and colleagues as the Northern Quarter in 5 ways: giving kindly words, taking care, equality, and not using tricky words. Friends and colleagues served by gentlemen in these 5 ways show compassion to them in 5 ways. They guard them when they're negligent. They guard their property when they're negligent. They keep them safe in times of danger. They don't abandon them in times of trouble. They honor their descendants. And we heard this last week, right? And what a friend is. Friends and colleagues served by a gentleman in these 5 ways show compassion to them in these 5 ways. And that's how the Northern Quarter is covered, kept safe, free from peril. A master should serve their bondservants and workers as the lower quarters in these 5 ways: by organizing work according to ability, by paying foods and wages, by nursing them when they're sick, by sharing special treats, and by giving time off work. Bondservants and workers should served by a master in these 5 ways should show compassion to them in these 5 ways. They get up first and go to bed last. They don't steal. They do their work well, and they promote a good reputation. Bondservants and workers serving by a master in these 5 ways show compassion to them in these 5 ways. And that's how the lower quarter is covered, kept safe, and free of peril. A gentleman should serve ascetics and Brahmins as the upper quarter in 5 ways: by loving deeds of body, speech, and mind, by not turning them away at the gate, and by providing them with material needs. Ascetics and Brahmins served by a gentleman in these 5 ways show compassion to them in these 5 ways. They are kept from doing bad. They support them in doing good. They think of them with kindly thoughts. They teach them what they do not know. They clarify what they've already learned. They explain the path to heaven. All right, this is my job. This is what I should be doing. Keeping you guys from doing bad, supporting you in doing good, thinking of you with metta. Teach them what they do not know and clarify what they've already learned. Right? That's my job to you guys. Ascetics and Brahmins should serve by a gentleman in these 5 ways show compassion to them in these 5 ways. And that's how the upper quarter is covered, kept safe, and free of peril. That is what the Buddha said. Then the Holy One, the teacher, went to say, parents are the east, teachers are the south. Parents are the east, teachers are the south. Wives and children are the west. Friends and colleagues are the north. Servants and workers below, ascetics and Brahmins above. By honoring these quarters, a householder does enough for the family. The astute and the virtuous, the gentle and the articulate, the humble and the kind. There who win glory, the diligent, not the lazy. They do it because it's hard, even though it's hard. Those not disturbed by troubles, those consistent in conduct, the intelligent. They are who win glory, the inclusive and the makers of friends, the kind, those rid of stinginess, those who lead, train, and persuade. They are who win glory, giving in kindly words, taking care here and treating equally in all worldly conditions, as benefit them in each case. These ways of being inclusive in the world are like a moving chariot and sledge pin. If there were no such ways of being inclusive, neither mother nor father would be respected and honored for what they are done for their children. But since these ways of being inclusive do exist, the astute do regard them well. So they achieve greatness and are praised. When this was said, Sigalika, the householder's son, said to the Buddha, "Excellent, sir, excellent, sadhu," as if he were writing the overturned or revealing the hidden, or pointing out the path to the lost, or lighting a lamp in the dark so people with good eyes can see what's there. The Buddha has made the teaching clear in many ways. I go for refuge to the Buddha, to the teaching, and to the mendicant Sangha. From this day forth, may the Buddha remember me as a lay follower who has gone forth from refuge for life. All right, friends. Very good. We have finished up the Sigalavada Sutta. So I think what we're going to do is let's do our guided meditation, and then we're going to end after the guided meditation. So we'll end at 9:30 my time. So we'll do a guided meditation now, and then we'll call it a night. So put your body in the position that is comfortable and stable for you. And then once you've done so, we'll start scanning through the body from the feet to the top of the head. Slowly moving through each part of the body, taking time to connect with any sensations or feelings we experience there. Each part of the body, we want to see that this part of the body is in a stable position, is encouraging a stable posture. And also, if there's any minor, small feelings of pain, we want to adjust our posture now so that small feelings of discomfort don't turn into large feelings of pain later on. So we scan through the body, slowly observing and setting our body up in a position, a posture that's as stable and comfortable as we can. So what is the feeling of your feet pressing against the floor or against the cushion? If you're having trouble at any time connecting with a sensation, you can prompt yourself by asking, what do I see? What do I feel? Bring your awareness through the ankles, up the calves, into the knees. Checking stability and comfort. Bring your awareness up through the thighs. What is the feeling of the thighs pressing against the chair or the cushion? And bring your awareness to your pelvis and hip. If you're sitting on a cushion, check to see that your buttocks is evenly distributed on it. Observe the position of your pelvis and how it affects your posture. Is its position forcing your spine to lean or slouch? Try to pay attention to these fine details and adjust your body as needed. When you're done setting up your lower body in a comfortable and stable position, move up through the abdomen to the chest. Check again to see that the spine is resting comfortably on the stable foundation of the lower body. You don't want to stretch out or extend the spine in any way. Just let it naturally rest on top of the lower body. When you set up your posture in a stable and comfortable position, you won't have to strain, force, or hold your posture. The upper body will simply rest naturally. Bring your awareness to your shoulders. Make sure they're hanging loosely, not scrunched up and tight. And then bring your awareness down through your arms, to your elbows, and then your hands. Check to see that the elbows and hands are in a comfortable position that supports the stability of your posture. Doesn't cause your spine to lean or slouch. The more stable and comfortable position your posture is in, the longer you can sit with the less amount of pain, strain. Bring your awareness up to your head, checking to see that the head is resting naturally, not slouched or leaning, chin parallel to the floor. And once you've set your body up in a comfortable and stable position, let go of the body and take 3 deep breaths. Then let go of the breath. From here on in, we do not wish to manipulate or control the breath in any way. Remember, this body has been breathing from the moment you were born. It will continue to do so until the second you die. It doesn't need you to do its job. Your job is to simply abide with the breath, observe and investigate it, understand it as deeply as you can. Watch as the breath goes in. Watch as the breath goes out. The breath is our home. It's always there, whether we pay attention to it or not. It's always waiting for us to return, to come back home, to peace and tranquility. Whenever you're distracted away from the breath, and mindfulness is starting to return, slowly starting to recognize you've been distracted. First, acknowledge you've become distracted. Practice letting go of the distraction and return to the breath over and over again. Acknowledge, let go, and return. Remember, try not to get agitated and push away distractions, nor get involved in them, attached and attracted to them, desiring to continue to think about them. Simply attempt to not give it any energy, like or dislike. Let it be. Let it go. Like releasing a butterfly into the air. Just let it go and return to the breath. The breath can take you all the way to awakening. The simple friend that's always there, keeping us alive. Stay with the breath, in and out. Every once in a while, check in with the state of your mind. Is your mind becoming more calm and tranquil or not? As your mind becomes more calm and tranquil, it may be easier to see further characteristics of the breath. Seeing ever more subtle things. Sometimes the breath is long and deep, sometimes short and shallow. Try to observe how this breath changes and its different characteristics even deeper. Sometimes while you're meditating, an experience might arise that's very strong, such as an itch or a pain. So strong, in fact, that no matter how hard you try, you can't let it go and return to the breath. It has taken up all your mental bandwidth and is presented as the single major experience you're occurring right now. At that time, it's acceptable to let go of the breath and focus your awareness onto that distraction, that itch or that pain, for example. Dive very deeply, just as you would with the breath, in investigating that itch or that pain. What does that itch or pain feel like? What are the sensations like in this body? Try to investigate the sensations, to patiently endure them, and to see deeply. See their characteristics. And the deeper you go, observe how they're changing, just as the breath changes. While you're observing, investigating the sensations of the body, check in with the mind. Observe the state of your mind during that strong itch or pain. What does the mind experiencing strong itches feel like? What does it look like? Investigate that mind state. What about the thoughts that arise? Thoughts and narratives regarding that itch or pain. What about impulses? Strong feelings, strong desires, wishes to perform an action like scratching the itch or adjusting your posture to alleviate the pain. Try to patiently endure these strong sensations as long as you can. Use them as your object of investigation. Observe how they're all connected. Feeling arises in the body. The mind reacts to that. A certain state arises. Try to observe how your thoughts and impulses arise related to that mind state. Feeling, mind, thoughts, and impulses. Try to observe these four aspects of your experience and how they interact. What is the body like with this itch or pain? How does the mind state change with the arising of this itch or pain? What thoughts arise related to that itch or pain? Narratives in the mind? What impulses arise related to that itch or pain? Use this framework to investigate this very strong distraction that has taken you away from your breath. Try to understand it as deeply as you can. Try to observe how it changes and see it at an ever more subtle level. Feelings, mind states, thoughts, and impulses. Observe these four things. Try to patiently endure them. And when you can no longer endure, when they persist, causing you pain and agitation, when all of your ability to endure has been used up, then it's okay. Scratch the itch or adjust your posture. But don't lose your investigation. Don't lose your mindfulness. Observe how the feeling changes. What is the feeling of scratching an itch? What is the feeling of adjusting the body? How does the mind state change while this itch is scratched? The posture is adjusted. And after the itching and the adjusting is done, how has the mind state changed? How have the thoughts and impulses changed? This is practicing using Satipatthana to investigate. You can use this way to investigate all your experiences at any time. Observe how these experiences interact with the various aspects of your senses, your mind and body. And then once the itch is scratched, the posture is adjusted. The pain and discomfort is alleviated. Come back to the breath and keep following it on the path to awakening. Okay, friends, slowly start to emerge from the guided meditation. Come back to the sounds, sights, and smells of the room, opening your eyes slowly. Coming back to the chat in the podcast, the Dhammapalooza. All right, friends. Looks like we didn't lose too many this time, Adriana. Maybe we're guilting people by talking about it. They don't lose. All right, friends. Okay, so let's do our... Actually, before we do a final chanting of merits, we'll do housekeeping stuff. So I am in transition. Starting tomorrow, I'll be on the farm. Shouldn't be a problem to do this on the farm. So I should, next Monday, Dhammapalooza should be fine. My morning sessions should also be fine, possibly. The time might change. I'm not sure. Gonna have to, every time I go to a new place, I have to adjust to the situation I'm in. The people who are there, the internet, the privacy. This is part of the life of a nomad monk. Right? So things change. Anicca vata sankara. We'll have to see how it goes. But for those of you who haven't seen any of my other things, you can... my main headquarters is my website here, maggaseka.org. If you subscribe to that, or if you subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the bell and do all that jazz, you can find out, get notifications for whatever I'm doing. I usually do post ahead of time if I'm going to do an event that's not a regular weekly event, so that people will have enough time to understand when it's coming. And I think that's that. So I do also help run an online Discord community. I think I mentioned it earlier, the Sangha. We are a community that studies and practices with the framework of the early Buddhist texts. So if that's something that you're interested in learning about, or something that you do and you'd like to be part of the community, you're welcome to join. Most or many of the people here probably are already on it, but those who haven't already, I don't know if Jessica is still here, but if Jessica is still here, this is your third or fourth time of me trying to get you on it. So if you're still here, it's time to come back on. All right. Oh, good. Very good. No, not email to that. It's Maggaseka at Gmail. That's the main one. If you want to join, if you want to check out the community, you can send an email there. Okay, friends, let's do our sharing of merits. Dukkha patta chani dukkha, bhaya patta chani bhaya, soka patta chani soka, untu sabbe pipanyo, ettavata cha mehi sampadang punya sampadang, sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti settiya, akasatta chabumatta deva naga mahiddika, punyantang anumoditva charang rakantu sasanang. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we've thus acquired, for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas, nagas, and yakas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, friends, if you're going to join us for our morning monastery experience, 8 a.m. on Eastern, see you in the morning. or see you next week. See you online, see you on the website, wherever. Until next time, friends, Sukhi Hotu, may you be happy, practice well and be well. I wish you a very spiritually successful and peaceful week.